So welcome to the webinar, guys. Today we're going to be talking about closing gifts that grow your business. We're going to talk about how to select the perfect closing gifts that build relationships and generate warm referrals. On the call with you, as I mentioned earlier, we've got myself, Zach Hammer from Real Estate Growth Hackers. We've got Gabe with API Nation. He's got the white background room there, and then we've got right. Jack Huntress with HomeBinder with the awesome custom orange background there. So we'll be kind of passing this thing back and forth a little bit. I'll probably serve a bit as the MC and give you guys a fair bit of this content. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video at this point, just to make sure that we have lots of bandwidth available for you guys. But wanted to be on here to say hi and let you see my my face. So there you go. Let me go ahead and turn off my video real quick, and we'll get into it. All right. So moving on, some quick housekeeping notes. So first and foremost, I want to remind all you guys, you want to make sure that you're removing distractions, turn off your phone, clear off your desk, and get ready to learn some great information. We've got a lot of information here. You want to be present in order to actually make sure that you're taking away from this everything that you can. Next, there we go. If you guys have questions, as I mentioned earlier, go ahead and use that Q&A rather than the chat itself. So there is a separate area in Zoom that is a Q&A. If you use that area, the Q&A, it allows us to see those questions more clearly, make sure that we hit them. And I would hate for us to miss one of your guys' questions. So use the Q&A so that we could see those effectively. All right. And then next, I just want to remind you guys, if right now, we're going to be sharing a lot of information, and that information can be very, very valuable to you, but it's only valuable if you actually do something with it. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and commit to take action. You don't have to implement everything that we say here, but if you guys agree to implement at least one idea, one nugget from what we're about to share with you, I want you to go ahead and raise your hand so I know that you're with me and that you're planning to take something away from this to improve your business. Awesome. Seeing lots of hands up. Let's keep it going. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier as well, but this training is brought to you by some wonderful companies, and also mine. But we've got HomeBinder in the house, and we've got API Nation as well, and then my company is Real Estate Growth Hackers. Jack, would you take a quick second just to kind of give a really quick overview of what HomeBinder is for anybody who's not familiar?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. So for those of you that have not heard of HomeBinder, maybe the name makes it make a little more sense. But for years in the real estate market, as many of you were probably aware of, 3-ring binders were given out to homeowners as a way to organize, manage their home in an analog way. HomeBinder is that in a digital form, a website and a mobile app. And because it's digital, there's a lot of neat things that it can do that a manual 3-ring binder cannot. So really looking forward to telling you about some of those.
Awesome. And Gabe, if you want to go ahead and explain what API Nation is.
Sure, yeah. API Nation is a middleware platform. So that means all the apps you guys use as real estate agents, you got a ton of them, and a lot of times you want to use the same data in a couple of them. And so API Nation just hooks them together so that you can enter information in one app and it shows up in all your other apps. So that is what we do there to save you time and make sure you can go out there and do all the things you love without having to copy, paste, import, export, all that stuff.
Awesome. And yeah, both these guys, both these companies, they're fantastic. They are great tools in your toolbox to grow your real estate business, to have a more effective real estate business. So definitely check them out if you're not already familiar with them. My company is Real Estate Growth Hackers. What we do is we help real estate agents to generate more warm conversations. We do that largely through training and courses, and some level of services where we help to run ads and help you build out campaigns and that sort of idea. But a lot of what we do is what you're actually going to see today on this training, where we're going to walk you through some information that hopefully just helps you to grow your real estate business. So here's what we are going to cover today on this call. So first, we're going to talk about why are closing gifts important. We're going to talk about how to select for the most powerful closing gifts in our second section. And then third, we're going to talk about a tool that you can use to immediately increase your closing gift effectiveness and how to make it effortless. So lots of exciting stuff on the call for you. So real quick, a little bit about me. My name is Zach Hammer. I'm the founder of Real Estate Growth Hackers. I have developed strategies that are responsible for over 50 million in closings in the past 24 months. I've managed hundreds of thousands in ad budgets. I've worked with several of the top agents across the country, including Brett Tanner, Jason Abrams, Brian Gubernick, Kevin Kaufman, Fred Weaver, and more. I've worked with agents all across the world, actually. So I've done a fair bit of stuff. Now, I don't say that to impress you. I say that to impress upon you. I know a fair bit about what I'm about to talk about. So I think it's important for you to understand who I am in light of that, so that you know to hopefully take it at least some level seriously. Now, with that in mind, I also want you to know that, I don't do this just for any reason. I want to help you achieve your goals. That's a big passion of mine. These pictures that you can see on the left here are of me and my family. We actually are very blessed to be able to travel the country in an RV full time. I run my business from the road. And so we've gotten to create a lot of fantastic memories because of what my business has given me the opportunity to do. And as a result, I want to pay that forward, and I want to help you guys to be able to do whatever you want to do, whatever your dream life, dream business results look like. And so that's why we're here today. Okay, I failed as many or more times than I've succeeded. In that process, I figured out some things that work. And today, I want to share some of those ideas with you. So real quick, my promise to you, I promise that I will teach you as much as I can in the limited time that we have together. And before I conclude, I promise to show you how to get more help if you need it. So we're going to show you some cool stuff, but we're also going to point you to some resources that you can use in the future if you need it as well. As a free bonus, if you stick around until the end, I'll tell you how you guys can get access to an awesome PDF that HomeBinder has put together for us that actually is a checklist that basically summarizes everything that you're about to learn. So you can take everything that you're about to learn, have a easy guide to sort of put it all together and take that with you, as long as you stay till the end, where we'll tell you how to get it. So what you're going to learn, again, we already covered this, but why are closing gifts important? How to select for the most powerful closing gifts, and then a tool that you can use to immediately increase your closing gift effectiveness, and how to make it effortless. So let's go ahead and dive in. Who's ready to dive in and go ahead and hop into the content? If you're ready, go ahead and give me hands up so I can take a second, take a quick drink. Awesome. All right, cool. Lots of hands up. We are ready. Section 1, why are closing gifts important? So let's go ahead and dive into that. So first, let's talk about the concept of the cost to acquire a new customer. How many of you guys are familiar with this stat, that it's actually about 10 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to keep a customer? If you're familiar with that, go ahead and raise your hand. If it's new to you, go ahead and drop a message in the chat. So lots of people are familiar. Lots of people are familiar with that. Okay, cool. So we apply that to this concept here. With the reality that in real estate, this plays out, partially with repeat business, in the sense of yes, like if you want to keep a customer, yes, you can get some level of repeat business, but it actually plays out more so in terms of warm referrals, right? That the people that you've already done business with, who know, like, and trust you, can be a wonderful source of referrals and business from warm conversations for years to come. So another thing about why closing gifts are important is that essentially the transactions that come as a result, at the end of a closing, it's your business to lose. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. So an NAR survey found that 90% of buyers would use their agent again or recommend their agent to others. Okay, 90% of people. So that means 90% of people are having a great experience. People are doing a good job. They enjoyed the process. They had good feelings at the end of that process. Yet the typical realtor earns only 13% of their business from repeat clients and customers, and 17% through referrals from past clients and customers, which means that there's a great deal of fall off there, that the people who would do business with you don't. And what we're going to talk about today is an aspect in that toolbox to hopefully help shore up that problem, so that more of your closing, your past clients end up either doing business with you again or sending you more business as part of your marketing efforts. And I use this graphic here of a plant to kind of give you a mental image. This kind of business, it's very much like a plant, right? You have to water it, you have to take care of it in order for it to pay off in the future. And if you don't, it dies and it actually doesn't do you any good. So we want to think about closing gifts in that process, that with just a little bit of watering, a little bit of effort, you can make it grow, and it can come to life and provide for you in the future. Now, if done wrong, closing gifts can be a waste of money and a waste of potential for one of the easiest ways to cement yourself in the minds of your clients, right? There are a lot of ways to do closing gifts wrong, and we're going to talk about some of those ideas in just a second. But when done right, closing gifts can become a consistent, recurring source of marketing that keeps you top of mind with your past clients for years to come, generating warm referrals and repeat business. So we're going to talk about some of those principles and show you how you can do this right, and make sure that closing gifts are a fantastic source of business for you. So would you guys like to see how to do closing gifts right? If you would, go ahead and say woohoo in the chat. I'm looking for some woohoos. I'm looking for some woohoos. All right, there we go. Got some woohoos.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, that trash can was so sad. Yeah, I definitely don't want to have the closing gift in the trash can.
Right? Yeah, we don't want to waste that potential and throw things in the trash.
For sure.
All right, let's go ahead and continue on. Okay, so section 2, the closing gift selection matrix. So that's a $10 word, huh? But we're going to talk about how to select for the most powerful closing gifts. We're going to go through some concepts for that with you guys. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to throw this out there. When I say something like how to select for the best closing gift, you may get the wrong impression, and so I want to clarify that right off the bat. There is no one right answer. Okay, so closing gifts, they exist on a spectrum. Okay, there isn't a perfect silver bullet for every situation. I don't want you to think that that's what I'm saying. What you can use the information that we're about to cover, you can use it as principles that you can apply to what you're already doing to make it better. Okay, and one of the foundational sayings in my life and with my business is the concept that done is better than perfect. Okay, so I would much rather you guys do something on the closing gift front than to hold off and try and make it so perfect that you never take action. So you can always improve things. Things can always be better, but start somewhere. Take some of these principles, put them into play, try and include more over time, try and make what you're doing better over time. But it's okay wherever you are right now. And I want to make sure that you know that. Moving forward. So the other aspect is that some of what we're going to talk about, the ideal solution that you're going to end up with is going to be a combination of these principles, right? You might mix and match from some of these ideas. You might put together multiple things into a sort of package, so to say, in order to get a good blend. So as you're looking at what we're talking about, don't necessarily think of it in light of a closing gift is one gift, as much as think of your closing gift as the start of a closing experience. It's the transition from client relationship into what the rest of that relationship is going to look like down the road. Now, on that note, when you are thinking about closing gifts, make sure that you're looking at it from the standpoint of playing the long game. Okay, so know that closing gifts aren't best served to generate immediate leads or short-term gains. Okay, think through what's going to have the most lasting impact rather than what gets you a short-term win. Okay, a lot of people, will step over dollars to pick up pennies in what they're doing with things like closing gifts or even in their marketing in general. So keep in mind the value of closing gifts isn't in like an immediate payoff of leads and referrals, et cetera. It's in this long-term relationship. And yes, you will get business out of it. You will get, it will flow business to you, but you want to do something that's going to last for the long term rather than potentially sacrificing the long term for the sake of a hopeful short-term win. So hopefully that concept makes sense. Okay, cool. And so as we continue, let's talk about some of these foundational criteria, and I'm going to bring Gabe into this conversation more. I wanted to get through some of the foundational stuff just that we could get it out of the way. But we'll have a little bit of back and forth on this. So one of the key principles is to make it memorable. So Gabe, I'd love to get your thoughts on making closing gifts memorable and why that's important.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of different aspects of memorable that we talked about. There's memorable when you see it around your house, that it connects with that big event in your life, that this is when I bought the house. So there's a
Right.
lot of closing gifts I've read about that seem very cool, but also, do not seem to connect with the house at all. Like I think
Right.
one we talked about, which we might touch on later, is just like a very expensive like espresso machine, which is unbelievably great, but also great. That what does that have to do with me purchasing the house or my awesome
Exactly.
real estate agent? Unless me and that real estate agent share a love for espresso, which is then it
Exactly.
makes them, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. So you want to make sure that your closing gifts that they stand out in the mind of your client, right? It's something that they'll think about, that they'll remember. That it doesn't just kind of come into their life and then quickly go out of their consciousness, right? You want it to stand out and continue to exist. Another thing that's important is the concept that the gift points to you. This could be a little bit hard to describe exactly, but the idea is you want your closing gifts to remind the person of you. You want them to either be unique enough that when they see it, they remember that you gave it to them. You maybe want it to stand out enough that it's specifically tied back to you. So like, as an example, if you how to describe it, like say you got your clients an extra copy of keys for their house, and that's one of the things that you do as a closing gift. That may not be quite memorable enough, and it may not be enough to point back to you, where they may not think of you every time they turn their key because it kind of falls into the background, right? Whereas if you get them a keychain that is very specific to them, that reminds them of the connection that they had with you, now that might actually point back to you because there's a memory there that serves that connection with you. So does that make sense, Gabe?
Yeah, a little bit. Could you expand? Like, what kind of keychain? Like, do you mean like if I just put my name on it, or like
No,
what exactly?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, and we'll be covering that in a little bit, but we're talking about something that would be specific to the person, something that's personalized. So not like a keychain that's that says maybe just has your logo on it, but rather like a keychain that maybe connects to something that's specific about that person. Maybe the foundational reason why they're getting the house, or maybe something that is very important to that person personally. Those are the kinds of things, something that creates more of an emotional connection. Another idea that's important in terms of key criteria here is that you want your closing gifts to be long lasting if possible. Okay, so you would rather lean toward things that stick around rather than things that go away. Because the goal here is that we want our closing gifts to kind of be an ever present marketing source for us. Okay, so and it's not that you can't have things that aren't long lasting. And we'll talk a bit about that later. But whenever possible, we want to have our closing gifts be around for a long time, so that they're there constantly reminding our clients of us. Let's go ahead and move forward. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it just goes back to that point you made earlier about 90% of people love their agent, 10% of people can't remember their agent, because there's that 7 to 8 year average gap between times when they really need their agent on a day-to-day basis. So you need that long lasting, that thing that's going to be there in 7 to 8 years. They can look around and go like, oh yeah, Zach Hammer, that's the guy I need to tell right now because I'm looking to move.
Exactly. Because there is such a long transition, and further, even in the in between, there's all those opportunities where they're hearing about their friends and family who are looking to buy or sell. You want them to have things that kind of remind them about you. Now, obviously, you should have other marketing that's doing this as well, but the closing gifts can be really effective as a way that's just you get it into their life, and it just sort of continually works for you. So let's move on to the next point. So the other thing that's important here is that the closing gift offers some real value. Okay, so it's something that the person, and this is a little bit subjective. When I say real value, that doesn't mean that it has to be expensive or pricey. That's not what we're saying there. When we're saying real value, it's something that the person themselves will actually value. It's something that they actually want. Okay, so not all gifts are created equal. Gabe, you want to touch on that a little bit?
No, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of the things in my house that are most valuable, I could not sell for a lot on eBay. Like they would not go for much.
Exactly, and so there, it is a subjective thing, right? Some things Some things are going to have inherent value that everyone could see. Other things are going to be valued because of the connection the person has to them, or to the ideas or the memories, etc. But you want to make sure that you're giving things to people that they actually value. Otherwise, they're gonna fall on deaf ears, and it's not going to do the work that you want in terms of helping to build that relationship and build that long lasting effect. So the last thing that we want to make sure that we're doing in terms of criteria, this is kind of our overall picture here, is that we want to make sure our closing gifts are exciting. Okay, so we want them. This kind of goes hand in hand with memorable a bit. The idea is that we want them to be something that they actually get excited about. That it's something that they fall in love with. That they really get a great experience out of. Otherwise, if it's kind of boring, then these kind of go together, right? If it's boring, then they forget about it. And so this goes into that overall recipe of sort of, what do we want? We want them to remember us. We want it to be long lasting. And the way that it stands out is by being exciting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also I think if it's exciting, it kind of organically leads to conversations with friends and family when they come over and they kind of show it to them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So by making your gift exciting, you essentially give it legs to do more for you as well. So yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So those are some of the key criteria. Keep those in the back of your mind as we go through the actual next step, which is the closing gift selection matrix. So we're going to go through all of these concepts and just a couple of quick foundational ideas for this section. For most of these, this isn't a bad versus good as much as a maybe stronger versus weaker in some cases. But in some cases, it's more about who you are and what kind of gifts you want to give. So keep that in mind. This isn't necessarily a bad versus good. It's more understanding when to use these tools, how to use them effectively, because every one of these ideas can be an effective closing gift if used properly. So keep that in mind. But we're going to go through and talk about some of these key ideas and kind of some of the duality of how your gifts might come across. So starting out, let's talk about branded versus unbranded. Now this one to me is I started with this very intentionally because I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, which is using branding on your closing gifts in the wrong way. Okay, and so when we're saying branding, what we mean is slapping your logo on it. Okay, if your logo, if your phone number's on it, that kind of thing, that's what we mean. Now, the problem with this is that when used in the wrong ways, it can turn an otherwise fantastic gift into an ad. and it's not that, I don't know, sometimes it's going to leave a bad impression that comes across as tacky. Other times it just removes the emotional impact that it could have. But with that being said, there are specific cases where having your logo, having your contact information actually flows nicely and works well. Okay, some examples of that we want to touch on. We're going to be talking about HomeBinder later on in this webinar. HomeBinder is a fantastic usage of being able to get your branding in front of somebody in a closing gift sort of environment in a way that doesn't feel tacky. It doesn't feel weird. Because it makes sense in the context of how HomeBinder works. Similarly, if you put together something like a recommendation list of businesses that you love in the area, it could be okay for you to brand that if it's like your guide that you've created. That could be a great way to welcome somebody to the community. Is there any other ideas that you want to throw into the mix too here, Gabe, on branding and how that plays out?
Yeah, I remember you had talked about like a coupon book for sure, like going around and kind of getting deals, welcoming people to the neighborhood, and then kind of you as being sort of the mayor of that area, putting your brand on that and giving that to the people. Or even just, remembering this time together, like one of my friends is an agent, and when we bought our house, he gave us a framed picture of kind of the letter we wrote to the previous owner to really consider our offer. And his brand is on there a little bit, but it's just kind of like, well, yeah, he was our agent, and this was like a joint effort, and we did it. Way to go! So that doesn't feel contextually. I think what you're saying is the context is huge on the branding for sure.
Absolutely. So really pay attention to that, because the idea of the gift is is we want it to be a subtle sort of marketing. Closing gifts are not most effective when they're like an in-your-face kind of marketing, okay? And so when we talk about unbranded, generally, not having a logo on it, not having your logo on it is part of what makes something actually feel like a gift, right? Like I said, with your logo on it, it can feel like an ad. Without a logo on it, that's when things tend to actually feel more like a gift. And so yes, you might sacrifice a little bit of the awareness, of the reminder specifically about you. But if you do a good enough job and you create a good enough emotional connection, that emotional connection will far outweigh the lack of your logo or your phone number being on the thing. So keep that in mind as you're looking at what to give for closing gifts. I would say if all you're giving is something that has your brand on it, then you're probably missing out on the value that you can get out of giving your closing gifts. It's okay to have your brand on some things in the right context when they make sense. But I would say a good closing gift package is going to include something that doesn't have your brand on it. Okay. So that's kind of the key idea that we want to talk about there. Moving on to boilerplate versus personalized. So boilerplate is the concept that essentially we're going to have some sort of gift that we can give to everybody. Okay, this leans into our done is better than perfect, right? So we want to have things that it's like we can get, we have some sort of standard gift that we can give to everybody. So that if we aren't able to capitalize on some of these other ideas, some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about, that you at least always have a go-to that you have something. Done is better than perfect. Having something that checks enough of these boxes, is better than having nothing. So having something sort of standardized for yourself can be a great idea. Gabe, did you want to add any points to that?
Just having Old Faithful. You're exactly right. Knowing that way, when you get that referral and you don't really get a chance to know them, you can still have something that provides a ton of value without having to spend a ton of time trying to figure out exactly how do I personalize something for this people? How do I get something, that's going to be really valuable that connects with them? Having that set boilerplate that you've put some thought into and, everybody would be happy with. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point that you just touched on there. When we say boilerplate, it's not a throwaway gift, right? It's not something that doesn't have value. It still has to check those other boxes, right? It still has to have real value. It still has to be perceived well. It's still hopefully some level of exciting. It's just if it's boilerplate, that means by definition it isn't personalized, which is what we're about to talk about. So keep that in mind. I mean, Gabe and I would both say that it is worthwhile to have something that's kind of your standard, tested, works well if you don't have something else that you can do that's better, right? It's always good to have that in your back pocket.
It's definitely that done is better than perfect idea. Having that valuable thing rather than just punting on the whole thing and be like, I didn't really know them that well, so, whatever.
Exactly. And so just the important thing to remember is your boilerplate gifts, they're almost never going to perform as well as if you customize or if you personalize something to make it more true to that person themselves. So let's talk a bit about personalized. So personalized in this context, what we are meaning is the item itself may not be custom, the item itself may not be changed, but that there is specific thought put into the item that you are giving that person, or the experience or gift that you're giving that person specifically, something that will stand out to them. Some examples that I've seen of this were a couple that moved from Hawaii to Ohio, I believe is where it was, and so they had never experienced shoveling their own driveway, and so the agent actually gave them as their closing gift, gave them a snowblower, so that they could clear their driveway well. And so now every winter, these Hawaiians now have the experience of being reminded of who their agent is by kind of connecting their lack of previous experience with snow to their agent who helped them through it, right? So that would be an example of a personalized gift, and it doesn't have to be like I mentioned, it doesn't have to be custom. The key idea here is that there's a significance to that person based on what you know about them. Does that make sense, Gabe?
Yeah, he's continuing to make those Hawaiians' life better. And the welcome to Cleveland. Here's your snowblower. Always
Right.
think of me. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, cool. Continuing on. So let's talk about stock versus custom. So stock, stock gifts, basically the idea here is that we're talking about something that you pull off the shelf, right? Something that anybody could go out, they could buy, they could get that same thing. And stock gifts can be a really good fit when you need something that's like a boilerplate gift, especially. And stock items can be fine if they have real value, or even, there are some stock items that for the right person can actually have a personalized feel, right? So, like if somebody is very techie and maybe very into the smart home scenario, right? Buying something like a Nest thermostat or a Ring doorbell or something like that could be a good fit. Where you're connecting with that person, that they'll appreciate it. They'll think it's extra cool, even though it's a stock item. It's something that anybody could go and buy off the shelf, right? So stock items, they're not necessarily bad. You have to pay attention. Is there real value in it, and how well does it potentially connect with the person? Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, I guess you could just run out to a store and get it. But like any gift, any gift for family, you would still want to put some thought into it. Like I wouldn't give somebody,
Right.
the Ring doorbell is a great example because there are a lot of people who love it. And there's a few people who are like not into making every aspect of their home smart. So
Right.
in that case, like a better stock item for them might be, an awesome, very expensive, cutting board or charcuterie plate if you've talked to them about that. Something like that where it's nice and stock, but matches them more accurately for sure.
Exactly. And so, the next thing, the kind of the counter to stock is custom items. So when we think custom, we think handmade, unique, or customized in some way that makes them feel like one of a kind. It's not something that somebody could go out to the store today and pull off the shelf. Okay, so customization can take place in lots of different ways. You can customize an item about the home itself. You can customize an item in light of the client, maybe something that matters to them or something about them. You can even customize items in a way that's about you, but it's about you in a way that you want to share with your client. Something like a story about who you are or how your business operates that you kind of want to give to your client. Now, I know, Gabe, you had a fantastic example that you had heard that involved fire extinguishers. You want to go ahead and share that about how you can take a somewhat standard item and customize it, to make it more personal, but also make it kind of stand out as a one of a kind thing.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking around Facebook with some different agents about closing gifts, and one agent in particular, he had mentioned that his go-to closing gift, would be his boilerplate but custom closing gift, is a fire extinguisher. And he puts a little plaque on there with his name and his phone number if they need him. But also, at first I was kind of like, okay, that's, super practical. But then he goes on to explain that he spent a ton of time in his life as an insurance agent. It's part of who he is, making sure people are safe, making sure people are prepared. And that's how he goes about his life as a real estate agent. So the fire extinguisher really says a lot about him, who he is, and then he customizes it, just that extra piece, so that they never forget, like, oh, that is the fire extinguisher from our awesome agent. And in 7 years, I'll give him a call, and we'll pick up and we'll take this fire extinguisher somewhere else. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And what I love about that example is that it gives an opportunity to take what would potentially be an otherwise somewhat mundane item, like you said, fairly practical, and it gives you the opportunity to put a bit of a story into it, right? To give significance to an item. So that is a great way that you could take something that was maybe otherwise simple and practical and turn it into something that connects them, not only emotionally but connects them back to you specifically. And so there's lots of different ways that you can customize things, right? Like, I've seen, cutting boards that have, either the date that the home was sold, or maybe like a wood burned drawing of the home itself.
Right. Like
you,
a family
you can
name.
get yeah, exactly. And so like in terms of customization, there's almost an infinite number of options. But the idea here is that you can use customization as a way to in some cases, yeah, it will tell a story, but in some cases, you can make it incredibly personal, where it is about like a very personal connection that you have with that person. But in some ways, the other thing that you can do is you can almost feign at personal, right? Where it's like if you make it about the home or the date that the home was sold, it's like that could be a fairly boilerplate custom gift that you do consistently without having to know too much about the people. And so there's lots of ways to leverage custom. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, just one other example I had heard that seemed really cool was one agent was taking some of the listing photos. So they get professional listing photos and they look beautiful. The house looks great. So they take those over to their friend who's a watercolor artist, and she paints a watercolor of it and they get to hang it in their house. And it's one of a kind. Nobody else has these, and it's boilerplate. It's easy to do. And it does create that real sense of value. It's already, something they can hang up in their house and start to decorating.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's lots of potential when it comes to customization. I'd say probably out of any of the things that we're talking about, it's one of the easiest ways that you could take something somewhat simple and add a bit more of an emotional connection with it. Because, if it's about their home or if it's about them personally, that is often an event for people that is an emotional thing. So if you can kind of, essentially create a physical representation of kind of that thing happening in their life that's tied back to you, that can be a great way to leverage this concept.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you. Go ahead. Last thing, I really appreciate the icon on that one you put in there was the hammer for Zach Hammer.
Yeah, right.
The custom Zach Hammer gift. There you go.
Yeah, that's right. That's
DIY
right.
your
That's
house. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Good call. So let's talk about the next one. Now this one isn't so much of a one is better than the other, as much as I wanted to explain for folks that you can have great gifts on both ends of this spectrum. So if you are potentially in a point where maybe your budget is tight and you aren't ready right now, most of your money needs to go toward bills or toward other things maybe, and so you're kind of trying to figure out the ways to be really cost effective with your closing gifts, you can still do a great job on the cheap if you really need to, right? The way that you make a somewhat cheap gift have more impact is by leveraging some of the other ideas, right? Like a cheap but very personal gift can have a really great impact. One of the examples that I shared with Gabe before we did this call was the story of this family that was having a hard time finding a home. They were buying in a lower end price range, and so they were having a hard time finding an agent who would help them. But when they found the agent who was ready to help them, the agent learned that the biggest reason why they were going about finding this home, why they were buying the home, was really like the core of their why was their kids. They were looking to create a better life for their kids. They were looking to create a better future for their family. And so the closing gift that the agent gave was really simple and probably not very expensive at all. And all it was is it was a keychain on the keys that said #1 mom for the mom, that when he handed her the keys. But it was meaningful enough to her that it moved her to tears, because the whole process that they went through, the trials, the difficulty in the process, it was all in pursuit of a mission for them that mattered very much to them. Mm-hmm. And so with a very simple cheap in terms of cost gifts, he was still able to make a really deep emotional connection just by paying attention to those personal aspects. So keep that in mind. You don't have to spend a ton of money in order for a gift to be a great gift, especially if you lean into some of these other concepts of personalizing it, or maybe there's some level of customization to it. Those kinds of ideas can make something that might not cost a lot have a lot more emotional value, even if there's less financial value in the idea. Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. I love that story. It's such an example of just like a thoughtful real estate agent listening and knowing their client and just nailing the gift. They'll never forget it.
Exactly. And so on that same note, though, there's another side of the spectrum, is the people who who don't see the value in spending money on closing gifts, who don't understand inherently that this is essentially, it's a form of marketing that actually pays off very greatly for you. So no, I understand everybody's got different situations. I've been in the situation often of, every bit of money that comes in is accounted for. So you really got to figure out how to make every dollar go as far as possible. So no judgment on that. If you're in that camp and you need to go toward cheaper gifts, then that's fine. But if you're in the camp where maybe you have a bit more room to breathe and you're just sort of questioning if this is a worthwhile thing to do or not, well, on the expensive end, know that getting a gift that really connects with somebody, even if you have to maybe spend a bit more to do it, can still be a massive payoff. Because if you can create that emotional connection with somebody so that gift really means something to them, that is almost priceless, right? In terms of what it actually means. Because sometimes it could be the difference between do they remember you or not. And if you could spend a bit extra so that it connects better with them personally, and it's not just for sake of making it an expensive gift, but sometimes in order to connect with somebody personally, you might need to go a little bit further to get the right thing that's the best personalized fit for them, right? So on that front, just know that it is worth it, right? It is worth it to put a bit extra, to spend more if you need to and are able to into getting a gift that really does the job right for the client that you're getting it for. Does that make sense?
Yep. 10 times, you're going to spend 10 times the amount trying to get new clients. You're thinking about buying this gift. It's a little bit expensive, but yeah, it's going to pay off for sure.
Exactly. And so again, it's not that one is better than the other. Sometimes you got to go to the cheaper end, and so you leverage more thought and care and effort. Sometimes you just happen to know that the best gift for somebody might be toward the more expensive end, and if you're questioning if that's a good thing, know that it can be, right? Creating that connection is worth it. So now let's talk about the next concept. Let's talk about consumable versus durable. So when we say consumable, we mean that you give a gift and it's something that they might enjoy, but it goes away, okay? Examples of this would be something like, giving somebody like chocolate strawberries or a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine. What's great about them is that you do get like an immediate emotional, experiential sort of connection with somebody. They get to enjoy that thing and it creates an immediate impact. The downside is that once it's gone, so is your continual reminder of the relationship that you guys had. So consumable items aren't necessarily a problem, but if left on their own, they miss out on the opportunity to have something that continually reminds you. And Gabe, I'm going to give you the opportunity in just a second to give your example that you gave, because I think it's perfect. But let me explain what durable means so you can kind of bring that home with your example. So when we say durable, we mean things that stick around. So in contrast to consumable, these are things that like they're objects. They stay there. They're physical. There's something that's going to be present in that person's life continually. This could be any sort of thing, right? But the idea is that there is an object. There's something that they will either continually use or will continually be around. So Gabe, why don't you give the example that we had talked about of how you might take a gift that is normally consumable and easily add a component that makes it durable, so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, no, I love this matrix so far because it's adding different ingredients and finding out exactly how to tool this for your client. And one of the ways I've seen done and actually seen personally is the consumable, the champagne. You get it, you celebrate with your client, give them the keys. Here's this super expensive champagne you and your significant other can enjoy later. And that's consumable. It's great. It's memorable. But also along with that, some champagne glasses, something they can use. It's durable. They'll have around the house. And hopefully every time they celebrate, they'll remember, hey, these were the glasses we got out when we first got our house. Remember that? That was incredible. And that's how you compare these kind of two things. And it's not crazy expensive, champagne glasses, very affordable. And really just a nice piece to add on and help them remember you.
Exactly. And so that's one of the key ideas in this sort of selection matrix is to know that you can look at whatever you're already doing and potentially just see, is there a component that I can add to strengthen it, right? So, a consumable thing on its own, it has the strength of you're like creating an immediate experience, right? If when they eat it or when it gets used, you're creating an immediate experience,
Hmm.
but you lose out on it staying around forever. So you might be able to take that thing and add something related that is durable. So you get the best of both worlds. So that's why, I loved that example when you came up with it. So yeah, but let's go ahead and continue on to our next one. So this one is experiential versus physical. So when we say experiential, what we're talking about are, one of the trends that's happened in the real estate world is that you can instead of paying for like a physical gift, you pay for them to do something, right? You pay to send them out to dinner, or you pay for them to maybe go on like an adventure. Maybe you're in an area that has like zip lining, or the example that I showed with this graphic is maybe you can like send them out for a night of sailing or something, right? So there are experiences that you can gift people with that could be fantastic. And one of the things that's awesome about experiences is when you think through what are the stories that you share with people when you're telling somebody about something in your life, 9 times out of 10 you're sharing a memory of something that you did with people that you loved or that you love. You're not often sharing a bunch of stories about different things. And so experiences are awesome for sake of really making those emotional connections and giving them the fodder, to spread the word further and to give you opportunities where you kind of exist in their mind in more ways than just buying or selling a home, right? So there's great ways that experiences can come into play. Now, the downside with experiences, though, is that if the experience is all that you give them, there might not be enough triggers or reminders in their world to kind of bring that experience up continually, right? So it may fade over time as it gets further away from when the experience was. So experiences are great, but they do have that downside. Whereas with physical objects, you might inherently have less of an emotional connection with the physical objects, but with something physical, it's there, it sticks around, they're able to see it, it's still in their lives. This kind of goes back into the consumable versus durable. It's the same basic idea, except applied to, instead of just like eating something, applied to doing something. But it has the same downside of it goes away once it's done. Now, Gabe, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. We didn't talk about this one, but I want to see if you can kind of pick up where I might be going with this. Using your same process that you did before, can you possibly give us an example of how you might do an experience, but then create a physical component for it?
Oh man, I was just thinking through all the different experiences you can give as an agent that would be like really meaningful. One of the big ones that I thought of was kind of going back to your, Hawaii to Cleveland idea. When people move to San Diego, which is where I'm at, one of the big things people love about San Diego is the zoo. And if I was an agent in San Diego, and I would just get them a zoo pass and be like, hey, I'm your agent here in San Diego. Welcome. This is your zoo pass. You're a San Diegan now. Go check it out. And I think that's a great story. Like, hey, remember when we moved to San Diego? That guy, he sold us our house and got us hooked up with the zoo passes, and we used it every day for a year. But then hopefully they have a physical reminder of the zoo, or something from the agent that lets them know, like, oh, they'll have the card at least for sure.
Yeah, well, and here's a way that you could take that and you can turn it into something physical. So, in the process of giving them the zoo pass, you could have a conversation with them, and you could say, hey, like, I really want you to enjoy the area. This is something that I've enjoyed. Maybe you say, like, I've enjoyed it with my family, or whatever actually connects with that person. And you say, I want you to make me one promise. I want you to promise me that the first time that you guys go, I want you to take a lot of pictures, and I either want you to post them on Facebook or I want you to send them to me. And then what you do is you take those pictures, you maybe get a nice print done, and you get that sent over to them. So now they have a physical picture of one of their early memories having moved to the area, right? So that they have that representation, and that could be the physical marker that keeps them reminding remembering you and your involvement in that process. So yeah, there's lots of ways that you could take something and take an experience and turn it physical, just by capturing the memory and maybe cementing that memory into some sort of physical object.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that would be great. Sending them those pictures at the 1 year mark, like, hey, remember when you bought the house and then you went to the zoo? That was awesome.
Exactly. So it even gives you excuses to follow up in the future. So yeah, if you do this right, like there's lots of opportunities in terms of how you can make this work. All right, cool. Moving on to the next one. So let's talk about the concept of one time versus recurring. So most people, when they're thinking of gifts, especially closing gifts, they're often thinking of a one-time gift. It's something that you give. Maybe you buy an experience. It's something that happens, or you give it and then you're done. And honestly, there's a lot of things that are great at this. If you give the right object, you get some recurring benefit just by the fact that it's in their home continually. So it's not like one-time gifts are necessarily bad. But on that same note, sometimes you can give a gift that has a recurring component. It keeps going to them. It keeps happening. Some examples of this would be like getting a subscription box, right? Where maybe that they're I don't know, the example that I saw that made me think of this is there's like a subscription box for dogs and cats. So like a pet subscription box where you get like treats and toys for the dog or whatever, right? And so you could do a similar sort of thing where maybe part of what your gift is, if you know that they're animal people and that they really love their pets, maybe that's part of what your closing gift is that you buy them a subscription to that subscription box. So every month they're being reminded of the the relationship that they have with you, and they get to connect it emotionally to getting to enjoy time with their pet, etc. And there's lots of different subscription boxes and things like that you could use to personally connect with somebody. But you get that benefit of kind of continually being there. And depending on the subscription box, there might be a downside. Like if it's a consumable thing, then as soon as you stop paying, then maybe it stops coming. If it does have a physical component, then hopefully they make enough connection with those physical items that they like, that they stay with them. But does that concept make sense in terms of one time versus recurring?
Yeah, I really like that. And I think, looking at that pet idea, there's like the one time, get them a super nice, this is going to sound a little bit silly, but get them a super nice dog dish, custom, got the dog name on it. They'll use it forever, one time, thoughtful. And then recurring, you could think like, oh, I could get them like dog toys and then those will get, destroyed, lost, whatever. Or I can get them that recurring thing. That is what is going to get me, a lot of, they're really going to love it. It's going to show that I care. I listened to them about their family, their dogs, what they love. And if you just, like I said, if you just get them the little toys outright, it's not going to last. So the recurring aspect can really shore that up.
Absolutely. And so yeah, and so the that covers the one time versus recurring. And I don't think we need to necessarily touch on this one a ton. It's more conceptual, which is the concept of practical versus frivolous. So practical is the idea of it's something that it's kind of a yes, they need it. It's maybe an obvious thing. So like some examples of practical. We've already given some, right? Like the snowblower. It's a practical gift, but it's also still a great gift because of that connection personally. So sometimes practical gifts, if they're just practical, that it makes them easy to forget. Okay. If there's a personalized component to it where it's, the reason why you're getting somebody a practical gift, like the example that we gave with the fire extinguisher, et cetera, those kinds of things. If you could tie an emotion to it, something personal to it, then a practical gift can still be a good one. But left by itself, just getting a practical gift might not be enough to make it stand out. On the other end, we have frivolous might not be the right word. It's got maybe too much of a negative connotation to it. But the idea is very often, the gifts that we get for people are often things that they wouldn't get for themselves, right? It's not a guaranteed purchase. It's something that they might not normally treat themselves to that thing, but by you getting it, they'll still love it. They'll still appreciate it. It's just not the kind of thing that they get for themselves because maybe they're trying to be more practical with their own money, right? So sometimes you can make a gift stand out by having it be to the a little bit to the edge of what somebody would normally get themselves. Does that concept make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like practical versus fun, and a lot of this seems to really harken back to just knowing your client, getting to know them, listening to them, so that you can see like what is going to be the most impactful gift. Like practical, if their client is moving into town, they don't know anybody, you might want to get them like a subscription to Freshly or something where they can get dinner delivered for a couple weeks. welcome to town, you're
Right.
unpacking, you don't want to have to make food. Here's, a freshly subscription. Here you go. That's super practical. This is just food. That's like the basic thing. Frivolous,
Right.
hey, you love coffee. I've gotten you this coffee of the month subscription, or I've gotten you this super nice coffee maker. It's something fun. They probably wouldn't necessarily buy it for themselves every time,
Right.
but it's going to also make an impact because maybe they don't need something practical, and they can move
Right.
on to that kind of fun idea and really value that.
Exactly. Awesome. So there you guys go. That's the matrix itself. Again, we went through all of these, but the concepts that you can leverage in terms of thinking through what you have and how you might be able to make it better, strengthen it, make it more impactful in your closing gift, selection process. You have branded versus unbranded, your boilerplate versus personalized gifts, your stock versus custom, cheap versus expensive, consumable versus durable, experiential versus physical, one-time versus recurring, and then practical versus frivolous. And I think we've done a fairly good job of kind of encapsulating all sorts of different ideas of how you could do a closing gift and take what you have and make it better, while still admitting and being aware of this reality, that there isn't a perfect closing gift, right? Like your personality comes into play, your needs, your abilities come into play. Sometimes even your connections, right? Like, do you know a local artist that you really love their work and you want to share that with people, or not, right? Like maybe you don't know somebody like that, and so that's not something that you throw into your mix. So these are some of the ideas that we like to look at in terms of how you could select a closing gift that really connects well, to your client in order to make that gift have the most impact and pay off in the long run for you, as long as possible. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on. So now, we'll transition into the next portion. So who would like to see a tool that checks all of the most important boxes of what we just covered, that you can add to your mix and make everything that you do at closing even more effective? If you could do it easily, if you could add it to your mix, it's simple, it's cost effective, but it brings a ton of value. It's recurring. There's all sorts of stuff in this. So, okay, I'm seeing lots of hands up. Lots of people want to see this. So let's go ahead and dive into that. So that's where we bring in Jack now. Jack, if you want to go ahead and say hi. Jack's going to talk to you about HomeBinder. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my screen sharing. I believe that Jack has some slides for us to see about what HomeBinder is and how you guys can use it to create an awesome closing experience for you and your clients.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zach. I really appreciate that intro. A lot of what you said, I sure hope the audience sees how it lines up with some of the things we'll talk about. Again, my name is Jack Huntress. I'm the founder of HomeBinder. We are a 8-year-old company outside of Boston. I'm a dad. I have 2 kids under the age of 10. For any of you out there that are in a similar situation, learning how to homeschool at this time, I feel your pain.
Oh man,
I'm with you. I don't know how Zach does it, traveling the country with his family and doing schooling along the way. I admire you a lot for figuring all that out, Zach.
Thanks, man.
One of the things that Zach said that I'll come back to is this idea of a closing gift package, and I think that that's a strong way to say it. I'm going to talk to you about HomeBinder over the next 5 to 7 minutes, but in no situation do we purport to be the only closing gift that should be part of something that an agent is doing. There are lots of other things that could, and we think should be part of it. But as you'll see here, as part of a closing gift package, this is checking a lot of boxes and doing some things that probably a lot of other closing gifts may not, but those other closing gifts I'm sure would be appreciated and have their own value to them as well. So without going into any more background or detail, let's dive right in. What is HomeBinder? As I said up front, HomeBinder is an electronic filing cabinet of sorts for the homeowner. It's a home management platform. There's a place for everything, and everything has its place. And we'll go into it in more detail. I won't be touching very much on the sell side today. We've talked to Gabe and Zach a little bit about that, may be a conversation for another day. But the idea being that HomeBinder reports as part of selling a home have real value. And hopefully we'll be able to put another webinar for another day just about that. Back in on the closing gift side, it is a tool that comes to the homeowner right after the closing, all automated. That's where Gabe will be talking about how API Nation plays in here in particular. It comes branded on both the website and the mobile app when the homeowner logs in. So it has that persistency, it has the long game, it has your information right up front. And because it's electronic, if you leave a business card, but you change your information, your email, your phone, you end up changing brokerages, that information you gave your client is now maybe no longer valid. When you change your information inside of HomeBinder, it changes across the entire platform. Every binder, every maintenance reminder, as I'll talk about in a minute, everything gets changed instantly. So your brand stays current with where it is today.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. You know, you think about it, Gabe, about how much agents move around in their career, and that can't be ignored with, I think, any technology solution. You probably know a lot about that on your end.
No, it's changing a ton. Yeah, just looking at the gifts this week, trying to figure out, what are people using, what is really effective. A lot of them are, plaques, some kind of, even that fire extinguisher is a fire extinguisher with an etched plaque with his phone number. But then all those, he changes his phone number, and now all those fire extinguishers are not useful. It's so sad, but no, that's great that HomeBinder does that. It's cool.
Yeah, really important. Early feedback that was a key element of it. I'm not going to go into the whole platform today. We'd love to talk to anybody, obviously individually in a demo. I'll talk about that at the end, how to do it. Just an example of a maintenance screen. Every section here on the left-hand side has a place for something about the home, and everything has a place all the way down to paint colors by room. If you've got professionals as a real estate agent, they can be loaded right into HomeBinder and be shared so that when the homeowner comes in, they're seeing their pros plus anybody that you may have offered or suggested to them. And those networks change too. So Gabe, not only do agents, contact information change over time, but also they may have an electrician, a plumber, a mortgage professional, someone in their network that they now no longer favor for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it would be persistent in an analog version. In a digital version, as soon as they get deleted out of the agent's account, they disappear from reference to the homeowner.
Yeah, which is a shame. Because so many of the social posts I see are people looking, especially on like Nextdoor. I don't know if a lot of the agents are on Nextdoor, but a lot of it is like, yeah, we had this electrician we loved. Our agent set him up with us, and now he's retired. I don't know what to do. And instead of going there, they could just hop into HomeBinder and get the new electrician from their agent.
That's right. And we think those referral networks are, they continue to be very powerful way for homeowners to find professionals to get work done.
Well, and playing into that, this plays into the the recurring component too, right? Where by being the source, you as the agent, connecting them to these great professionals, every great experience that they have with that plumber, with the with the landscaper, with the pest control person, whoever, every great experience that they have with them essentially reflects back on you. So you get to be part of their continual life in that home, even after you're done with your transaction. So it plays into everything that we're talking about here.
Absolutely. This is, of course, my love and joy. This is what I get to do on a daily basis. I could go into a lot. I just summarized some of the things that HomeBinder does, and then we'll talk about the branding and the closing gift part of it. I just thought it was important to offer a little bit more about what is HomeBinder as a tool, as a platform, as an app, as a piece of software. I mean, we have an app for everything in our lives. Why is there not an established one yet for the home? And that's what HomeBinder is.
Yeah, I love how that track paint by colors by room. You kind of have it as like a afterthought, almost like and also it tracks paint colors by room. We have 2 paints in our house, and I can never remember which color they are. So every time I go to Home Depot, I got to go into the garage and dig out these paint cans to figure out exactly what I'm going in there for. And it is a hassle, man.
Yeah, one of our largest lender clients came on board, and we're talking they're doing 10, 12,000 loans a year, because he had to repaint his entire downstairs, costing him $7,500 because he used the wrong color paint.
Oh, jeez.
And he lost it. He said, this is crazy. I can't do it anymore. Anyway, that was his backstory, but that was the bullet that brought him to us. And of course, he likes HomeBinder for lots of other reasons, but
Yeah.
it can be a real difficult thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. So where's the branding come in? Well, I talked about on the dashboard. Every time the homeowner logs in, every time they're on the app, there's the branding that's right there. But what I want to also talk about are maintenance reminder emails. If you give a homeowner a analog 3-ring binder or some type of physical handout, it's limited in the sense that it can't talk to the homeowner. Because we're electronic, we can, and a primary way we do it, besides appliance recall notifications or a monthly update, is through maintenance reminder emails. Hey, it's time to sweep your chimney, service your furnace, blow out your sprinklers, whatever these key items are. For most homes, that 6 to 8 touches a year with your information on it, that's just on autopilot, just running in the background as an automated drip campaign that just doesn't stop, providing those touches per year. We obviously coach people not to put in everything as a maintenance reminder, like, hey, it's the fall, rake your lawn. I mean, that's silly.
Right.
But that's an inclination that some agents might have, just because I want more touches. What we like to coach agents about is, think about every time a maintenance reminder comes out, you want to make sure that the homeowner opens it. You have not cried wolf. It's not good for you. It's not good for us, and engagement with that homeowner. And honestly, 6 to 8 touches a year over the course of a decade of them owning their home, that's a lot of augmentative marketing that you don't have to think about. It's just going on in the background. And again, if you change your information, it immediately is changed across all maintenance reminders, anywhere on the website, any contact details.
Yeah, and not to mention, these are also great opportunities. Those maintenance reminders, your partner vendors,
Yes.
when they're the type of maintenance reminder that would normally involve a vendor. Well, shoot, you're essentially marketing on their behalf. That lends a lot toward referrals and potential like joint advertising budgets and all sorts of stuff. So there's lots of power there.
And we automatically tie those professionals together. So if we see an HVAC person in your list, they automatically get tied to service the furnace. We see a chimney sweep, they automatically get tied to sweep the chimney. And so that helps that network with very, just make home ownership a little bit easier. I think every agent, cares about home ownership. They care about homeowners being successful in their home. And there's a lot of negativity around there today because homes are complex and we have busy lives. And we're trying to make that barrier a little bit less difficult than it is today, and create a more positive home ownership experience. Because I think that's good for the economy. It's good for agents. It's really good for people on there as individuals, but it is a difficult thing to do in your life.
Absolutely.
So value to agents, being relevant digitally in front of clients, especially millennials, building your referral base, staying in front of your previous clients. We talk a lot about, and Zach did up front, about how many of your clients are your buyers. They do have a difficult time re-engaging with you, and building your base over time takes a little bit of work, and having a lot of tools out there working for you, of which HomeBinder could be one of those, can help build that additive stack of people out there really still remembering your name, bringing their business back to you, and also remembering your name at a dinner party. We talked a little bit about sharing a professional network. We also touched just briefly on how HomeBinder seller reports are another part of it. Again, not for today, but hopefully another future webinar. With that, I'm going to be sensitive.
Real quick, Jack. I was just going to say, go ahead and go back to the previous slide real quick. We will be doing, anybody that's on the webinar right now, we will be doing another webinar as the plan to talk about how you can strengthen your listings to help you in that process, especially for sake of securing more listings and using HomeBinder as a tool for that. It's a very powerful component of what HomeBinder does. We just didn't want to dive into it a ton on this webinar because it's kind of outside of the context of what we've been talking about. But do note, like that, it's not a small thing that it does. It's just it wasn't as relevant in this context. So I wanted to reassert that for you.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. Yeah, it would be information overload today. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Gabe now, who can talk a little bit about how integration makes it easy. I will not steal any of his thunder. I will let him do it all. But I think the core message here is that we understand you use technology tools to both run your business And because of that, you expect it to drive efficiency. And through what Gabe's going to be able to talk about, the process of putting HomeBinder into the hands of your buyer clients is entirely automated. When they get set up, they get an email from the system letting them who set them up. They click on the link, they're dropped right into a page where they pick a password, and they're brought into their HomeBinder. So we didn't have to come back after Gabe talks. I thought I would just include a few images here so you get a sense of how it works. HomeBinder would cost a homeowner $36 a year to use the product, so over $300 in value over the duration of their ownership. Talking about another point that Zach talked about earlier. So without further ado, I'm going to tee it right over to Gabe over at API Nation. I'm going to escape here and stop my sharing.
Yeah.
Gabe, you've got the comm.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. Yeah. So HomeBinder, kind of how Zach and I talked about it, a lot of super great ways that HomeBinder complements your closing gift package. And I think it's, when you're choosing your closing gift, even if it's your current closing gift, you think that's working great. HomeBinder is going to just come alongside that and make it, lasting, recurring, memorable, custom. It's their house, practical. It tells you all about, all the different services they can use around their area. And we want to make it as easy as possible to use HomeBinder and make that a complement. So that's kind of what we do as API Nation, is make apps talk to each other so that using them together is as easy as possible. So these probably look pretty familiar. A lot of these are real estate apps agents are using every day, and we've put them all on our platform so that they talk to each other, and you only have to enter information once, and you can do less work at your computer so you can get in front of people and do more of that client work that is so important. So you can go on to myapination.com and poke around and see if the apps you use are every day are on here. They most likely are, including HomeBinder. And so HomeBinder has a very sweet integration set up with dotloop. And what happens is you come on to apination.com, you signed up for HomeBinder, and if you're using dotloop, you can just connect HomeBinder, pop in your API key and a couple information from your HomeBinder account, which is easy to find here. Just go to this gear, and it's in automation. There it is. So you'll just go in there and find it, bring it in here, connect HomeBinder, and then anytime you create a loop in dotloop, you automatically create a binder in HomeBinder. There's no extra work. You're going to be making that stuff in dotloop anyway. You might as well have that effort duplicated automatically so that when you do finally finish this transaction, your HomeBinder is all set up. All the details are already copied and pasted in there. So you can just hop in there and send it to that buyer and say, hey, this is all done. This is, took you or your admin very, very little work. Just got to set it up. And that's it. That's kind of what we're trying to do, is save you a ton of all these little day-to-day processes so that you can get out there and do more client work. So
that's awesome, Gabe. I would say, we talk about HomeBinders being an integration first company. We've integrated with close to 20 platforms by now. I can tell you that API Nation, the value of having a system that's all interconnected the way they have it is incredibly powerful. Some of you have seen Zapier, maybe use Zapier. API Nation is that on steroids. And every industry, from what I've seen, is starting to develop a hub of this of some sorts. And, API Nation has made it really easy for us. And we're super grateful for Gabe and his team over there, because it makes all of our lives so much easier when technology isn't such a mystery to get it to talk to each other.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's it. It's pretty simple. And you'll just sign up for HomeBinder, come to API Nation and connect it to your dotloop account. And then you're ready to go, basically. You're ready to start giving a very sweet closing gift.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, this really, to kind of tie it all together, so everything that we talked about of how you set up your closing gift and all of that, if you really want to think about how you can implement this like incredibly effectively, if you put a lot of work and effort into thinking through your closing gifts, from the perspective of creating that emotional connection, you can do that and really focus on the emotional side, right? And be able to really solidify that emotional connection that you create through your closing gift. And then you bring HomeBinder in that mix, and now you've got the benefit of an incredibly great emotional connection through your closing gift, plus the HomeBinder system, which conveys all sorts of value. It's very practical. It gets your brand in front of them. You've got repeated reminders just happening on autopilot. And when you tie that together with API Nation, the work that you're already doing to manage your transaction will automatically result in you marketing to those clients in the long run. I mean, you've got the perfect storm of results in terms of using all of these systems, tying them together, creating those great experiences, creating those referral relationships, and yeah, it's just fantastic. That's part of why we wanted to all come together on this and really paint a solid picture of how you could use closing gifts effectively this way, but how HomeBinder and API Nation are such a valuable set of tools in that overall toolbox of creating an awesome closing experience for your clients. So yeah, there you go. Now, real quick, I was just going to say we talked about a bonus at the beginning of this webinar. I did want to touch on that real quick for folks so that they know. So just by being around for the end of the webinar right now, you don't actually have to do anything else. We will be emailing out the bonus that Jack has put together for us over at HomeBinder, so that you guys can get that information. It's got the stuff that we covered today, as well as some thoughts that HomeBinder has put together as well. So you will be getting that just by watching and sticking around to this point. And then now I think we have the time available. We're probably a bit past what we had initially expected, but if anybody has any questions, I think we're able to stick around for a little bit to answer your questions.
It looks like one question I saw in there from Sunny: is HomeBinder available for Canada?
It is. We are proud to say we have customers in all 50 states, all Canadian provinces.
Oh, nice.
Very excited to offer HomeBinder north of the border.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, so anybody else, if you guys have any other questions that you would like us to touch on, then feel free to go ahead and drop those into the Q&A. I'm not sure, how are you guys looking on time, Gabe and Jack? I'm not sure how much time you got, because we have gone over what we expected.
In the middle of COVID, you just let me know when we can. I'm here.
Fair enough. How are you looking on time, Gabe?
Yeah, I got a few minutes if anybody else has any other questions. But I definitely want to respect everybody's time if we
absolutely. And one thing that we can do if people want to, given we've gone past time a little bit, we do, people have dropped off a bit. But if anybody wants us to, one of the things that we can do, we can pull up some examples of closing gifts and kind of step through and think through how they fit on the matrix and maybe what we could do to improve them. So if anybody's interested in that, go ahead and drop a message in the chat so we know that we can do that. But I do see there is a question that just came in.
Yeah, Susan was asking, what is it going to cost an agent for HomeBinder? For API Nation to integrate dotloop and HomeBinder, that's completely free. That's offered as part of your HomeBinder account. But to set up HomeBinder, Jack, like what is an agent looking at?
Yeah, so our plans start at around $49 a month and go up from there based on volume. So hopefully for most agents, it's a very cost-effective gift that keeps going. There is no sign-up fee. There is no cancellation fee. If you leave, your customers still get HomeBinder. Your ability to keep changing the branding goes away, but we don't rip it out from under their feet either. We're very oriented on being there for the long run. As you can probably tell, we're there to be over in that journey of 10 years or more. And that'll be something we touch on in the next webinar, hopefully around how it all comes full circle on the other side of the transaction.
Nice. And that's $49 a month.
Yep.
Cool. And you just turn it on, and basically with the integration, you kind of just set it. And I hate
to quote that famous Ron Popeil, set it and forget it.
That's right. And then you just have to remember it's on. That way when that user or that client stops you on the street in a couple months and is like, hey, thanks for reminding me about that HEPA air filter. You could be like, Yeah, I remember. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And it looks like there is another question that came in through the chat. So Anita asks, how many users at $49?
That'd be one user, one small team. Is the way you would look at it. It's all based on effectively volume. Happy to go into full pricing matrix if anybody has further questions. Yeah, it could be a one user, one small team.
Okay, and she kind of clarified. So $49, you mentioned like is kind of volume based. So what is like the maximum amount of kind of sides, I guess, or clients?
Yeah, you could be setting up to 50. You could be setting up to 50 home binders a year for that.
Oh wow, sweet. That's pretty. Yeah. Definitely.
And I don't know if we've actually mentioned this yet, but where is the best place for people to go, to inquire more, to take the next step? Because I know you guys have some level of, various options for various various levels of commitment, everything from, a solo agent all the way up to, working with brokerages and multiple teams and all of that. So depending on people's needs, where's the best place for them to go to kind of start that process of seeing if HomeBinder is a good fit for them?
Yeah, if you just go straight to homebinder.com and then under professionals, you pick agents and brokers. There's a fair amount on the landing page. There's also an opportunity to schedule a demo. There's also opportunity to get to some of our lead sources and some online videos as well. So
Awesome.
Ultimately, we really, we love talking to people. We're not trying to depersonalize this. We want to get you on the phone, run you through a demo, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. And there's a lot to HomeBinder. And I think for every agent team, brokerage, we're talking about a slightly different mix. We had one the other day that was just so excited about our review system, because we now have a review system baked in that every time a HomeBinder gets set up, when that homeowner comes in, it's another chance to capture a 5-star review. And then you can tie your review system into that, so that then it flows right into your review system. So any chance we have to augment some other aspect of an agent's business, we're adding it. And that was a huge decision for why that firm moved forward.
That's awesome. Yeah,
That's
I'll be sure to email out that landing page, specifically all the information about HomeBinder.
And you'll send the PDF, obviously, to those on the call that have been here all the way through, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yep. We'll get the PDF out to everybody who hung in there and now is ready to go send the perfect closing gift every time. Last thing Michelle's asking, so 50 binders a year, does that cover a client for 1 year? So how long do they get the reminders?
Yeah. So the reminders are for life. The reminders are for life. It is an ongoing thing. You're buying it up front for that client for the lifetime of their ownership. And you can legitimately say to them, it would otherwise cost them over $300 over their lifetime of ownership, because at $36 a year for 10 years, even my 7-year-old can do that math.
The homeschooling, it definitely will. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the homeschooling. Homeschooling's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really straightforward. We heard a loud voice from agents right from early days. I do not want to give something to my clients that could be ripped away from them. If I just decide for whatever reason I need to go another way, maybe I change professions, maybe I want to go do something else. Right. I don't want that to happen. So that's the way we've set it up. It is a subscription. The ongoing part of the subscription just allows you to keep your account active, keep updating your profile, but it's a one-time purchase for that client in terms of them getting the binder at the premium level with unlimited storage and appliance recall notifications and customized support on you. Until they go sell that home.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. So to be clear for anybody who's missing this portion, so on the client end, they will keep the home binder for life as long as they have that property. The client gets to keep it. The thing that goes away if somebody stops paying is that they essentially lose their aspect of some of the marketing benefits, being able to keep that vendor list updated, being able to keep their information in front of the client. So that's what you missed out on. But luckily, your client still gets the benefits that you initially set up for them.
Absolutely.
Cool. Sweet. Well, I think that's it, man. I think people are ready. They're ready to go out there get their awesome closing gifts set up and take it to the next level.
Now we just need this,
Awesome.
now we just need this market to light back up again.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of reports that say it's actually too different since, I mean, comparing to 2019 to 2020, looks pretty similar. Right? Yeah.
I think we're just kind of slightly delayed, but I do believe that, look, the volume's going to still happen this year. Largely, it's just going to be shifted. You know, a lot of it, especially in the Northeast, is going to be shifted more late, late summer.
Right.
But we're rooting for it. We can't wait for life to open back up again. I want to thank you both so much for giving me the opportunity today to do this. This is, this is love and joy for me. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad segue to, I think it will open up a lot because people are at home sitting there searching for houses right now. And so what you're going to need is a way to, as an agent, make sure your listing is setting itself apart. So I think we're going to talk about that next time on the webinar, how we can use HomeBinder and some other great strategies to do that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Gabe. Absolutely. Thank you, Zach.
You got it.
Thanks you, everybody.
Thanks for coming on. One quick thing I want to throw out there too. I guess two quick things. So part of why it's so great to bring people on like Jack and HomeBinder on for this. I love it when products and services are just such a natural next step, such a natural way to implement ideas, just solid marketing, good ways of doing it. It's cost effective. It doesn't cost a ton, but the impact, the power of it's so powerful. So while yes, there's an opportunity for you to come and talk about what you guys are up to, there's just as much value that everybody who stayed through the call and got to hear about what you guys are up to in terms of the power that can give their business. So I love it when things can align so much like that. And similarly with API Nation, making the process of implementing these tools and connecting everything up together at such a cost-effective rate, just so simple. All of this, it's like the perfect storm of all these things just working well together, and the value that everybody gets out of it just by transacting, just by getting these tools for themselves and for their clients. So it's awesome. One other thing that I wanted to throw out as well, I had mentioned that we could go through and go through examples. I don't think we're going to have time for that right now. But either I myself and Gabe, I will happily invite you on if you want to. I would be willing to do a quick bonus call at some point that maybe we can hop on and for anybody that attended, we can invite them to this where we go through some of those examples and maybe break down the matrix and how it applies to some different examples of closing gifts as kind of a bonus for anybody that wants to see those examples and see how they play out.
That'd be cool, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So stay tuned to your emails, guys. If we do end up doing that, which I most likely will, hopefully I can get Gabe to come on with me. Then stay tuned to your emails. We'll probably send something out so that you guys can see that coming through.
Sweet. Sounds fun, man. Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks so much, everybody, for stopping in, and we will talk to you all soon. I'll make sure to email everybody a replay of this so that you can check it out, share with friends, and all that. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody.
See you, everyone.